Welcome to week 6 of the LEC Summer Split. It's Pride weekend here in Berlin, and we are joining the celebration all weekend long to stand up against homophobia and transphobia in the gaming community. We have got so much packed in today. Schalke and SK gearing up for their first game of the day. Good day, guys. I'm EpicSkillshot, and I'm joined for my first ever ready check by Ender and Frost. How are you guys doing?
I mean, I'm doing great, but I'm still like, who are you?
Yes, who am I? Well, I'm not Medic's brother, actually.
You're not Shox. You're not Trevor.
You're not Machine. Like, that's all the people we've done so far.
Yeah, no, I'm a new guy. I'm EpicSkillshot. I've been doing League of Legends for about 6 years now. I'm primarily from the European Masters, if anybody knows that. A lot of you might know me from Vainglory. Really? You might know me from Auto Chess Mobile. I've done a lot of stuff, basically.
Excuse me, was that TFT?
That was TFT.
Oh, perfect.
Excellent. Fitting in already.
Okay, right, guys. Let's get down to business, because we've got a really important week coming up as we gear up for playoffs. So let's have a look at the standings and see exactly where we are.
Yeah, you bring up important. It's basically the beginning of the end for all of our teams. We're in crunch time. We're in a race towards the playoffs, and I want to kind of pay attention to two different races that are happening right now. For me, first two seeds, because of our playoff format, are exceptionally important, and we have a tie currently between the second seed in Fnatic and Splyce. No one expected Splyce to be in this race, but there they are. And then the second race is actually for who's going to make playoffs.
Exactly. Right now, the 6th spot seems completely wide open with Vitality and Rogue locked in there currently, but we saw just last week this entirely new Misfits roster get that big upset win against
I'm
Rogue.
glad you mentioned Misfits, because they've had a full body transplant. They have replaced every single member of their team, as well as Soaz and Gorilla leaving the organization. It's time for what is essentially their European Masters roster to step up. And Dan is one of the key people we want to highlight, because he has already had an outing in the LEC. He looked impressive, that Jax game nonetheless. How have you felt he's performed so far?
I think it's about changing up the playstyle. So we see a lot of Cannons, a lot of Nikos, a lot of Victors, and Dan comes out with the counter to the Aatrox with the Jax. And he's playing a style that demands a lot of resources, which a lot of our top laners don't necessarily play that way. So not only has he looked very impressive on signature picks like his Jax, but he's also kind of shaking up where are we putting priority, who are we camping in these lanes.
Right, and to be clear, this game against Rogue was not an easy win by any means for Misfits. This is a game where their backs were against the wall, where Rogue were in a position to take the Baron, and it was Dan, the only player on this team we had yet to see perform on the top professional stage, that stepped up, got that big Baron steal, and the team fight win.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how Dan does across this week in particular, but he's not the only person that's made a move into a roster. Rekkles is back for Fnatic. They got that win last week, and now they're coming into a very important week for them with Rekkles back on the roster.
It was chaos. He left for a single game. Everyone's like, oh, Fnatic are done. What are they going to do? He comes back. He plays his signature Karma of all things.
Signature, okay. Well,
signature Karma of all things, and he's now looking down the barrel of 1,500 career kills. The first player to be able to do that in the LEC.
I think he's just 1 kill away.
He's a single kill.
Wow. I think he's going to pick up a kill at some point this weekend.
We would hope.
So we'll look to see if Rekkles can do that. He's far and beyond one of the best AD carries that we've got here.
And what I really want to focus in is that Karma pick. Obviously, when Rekkles gets to play, it's a bit of a meme. But what's cool about when Rekkles plays the Karma is that it frees up Hilly on things like his Pyke, like his Rakan, to leave the lane and start camping things like that mid lane. Karma can wave clear. She's very safe. She can back up. So when you see the Karma, don't be dismayed, Fnatic fans. It means that Hilly's going to be the carry.
Well, speaking of Rakan, he's going to be featuring on 914, we believe, a lot. And it's hitting the Rift this week. LEC is on 914. And for those of you that want a bit of a breakdown, we've got our resident playtest analyst, Ender. Take it away.
Thanks, EpicSkillshot.
Walk away.
Okay, fine, I'll walk away. I'll come over here where I can do this all by myself. We want to talk about 914 now. On paper, this patch looked absolutely massive, but I don't actually think it's going to affect the state of our game all too much. There are two roles, though, that were shifted in particular. I want to start with the top lane, where we had some key buffs to champions. Now, you might see Karma up here, and you're like, why would we buff Karma? She was already so high presence. Now, the change to her just gave her True Sight on her W. That's the tether. So it's not going to be a huge buff to her, but we're still definitely going to be seeing her in the top lane. The important changes, though, for me in terms of buffs are to these melee champions right here. I want to look at Poppy first of all, because the big change to her is that her W, the steadfast presence, now when you knock someone out of their mobility, it will ground them for 2 seconds and also apply a slow. So it can really make some of these matchups like against a pick like the Camille very, very strong, and even try to thwart some engages from melee supports like a Rakan or an Alistar that want to make those plays. But in the similar vein, Renekton also got some key buffs. His W now, when he has more than 50 Fury, will cut through any shield, no matter how big, no matter how small. So again, we look at a matchup like Camille, let's say, you can instantly cut through that and win trades. You can also really bully a champion like the Tahm Kench because, again, it doesn't matter how big the shield is, that single spell will just immediately delete it from the game. Now, we've already seen Renekton played across the world as a potential counterpick option into the likes of the Karma, but the Kled is another pick that we could see as well, gaining grievous wounds, a 60% healing reduction whenever he pulls you back on that bear trap on the rope. But the picks we've seen so consistently throughout the LEC are these ranged top laners here, looking at the likes of the Nico and the Kennen, which did receive some laning phase nerfs, but were compensated later in the game. The Jace also felt that same sort of nerf stick added in with a couple of buffs, but his win rate actually went up in solo queue. Now, I do want to direct our attention to the Aatrox right here, because while on paper, you might say this guy is completely nerfed. He lost his revive. He did gain a lot of healing right now, so there is some discussions that this champion could potentially even be better after these changes. But overall, top lane, we're still going to be seeing some of these ranged top laners in the game, even with the changes, and we're also going to see some potential new picks in those melees. Now let's move on to the support role, where our 4 primary supports on the last patch, the likes of Yuumi, of the Rakan, as well as the Lux, 3 of those got nerfed. Those 3 right there, boom, boom, boom. Lux got absolutely shattered in solo queue. Her win rate went down 6%, losing cooldown on her Q as well as shielding on the W. And Tahm Kench as well as a very sad catfish on this patch, losing a lot of his CC potential alongside his Q and just delaying that overall. The Yuumi was also taken down in terms of damage just a little bit, which means Rakan is going to be very high priority in the LEC this patch. And that's why I want to draw your attention to some potential counter picks. We already mentioned the Poppy could be a very good answer, but also the likes of a Nautilus or a Leona or anyone who has hard CC to try and lock him down and make his life absolutely miserable is going to be a good option. The other way you can go is the likes of Morgana, who can push in the lane and also use Black Shield to try and thwart those engages. But ultimately, our eyes are going to be on the top lane new melee picks that we saw buffed in this patch and added those unique mechanics on, as well as what counter pick options can we put up against this Rakan. So I'm going to be looking very much forward to that as, wait, what's going on over here?
I'm the host
new
now.
here, don't ask me.
Okay, so we do a little thing on the LEC called the hot seat. Now, Scoundrel, welcome to the hot seat. We must now judge you if you are prepared. This is lightning round for the LEC and Ender. Here are the cards, here are the questions as fast as you can. Fnatic or G2?
G2.
Ready?
G2?
Doesn't look right. G2, okay, well, fine.
Okay.
Zero Corki.
Corky.
Where are you from?
I'm waiting for the...
Where are you from?
The question? Oh, the UK.
Yeah, okay, where in the UK?
Ipswich.
Yeah, but where in Ipswich?
North.
Okay, favorite food?
Calamari.
Tea with sugar or cream?
None.
Did he say calamari?
I just move on.
Okay.
Most hated champion?
Oh, God. Lee Sin.
Most liked champion?
Sion.
Favorite LEC caster?
All of you.
Best dressed LEC caster?
Medic.
He's trolling. All right, what's more tilting, demons or yordles?
Say that again.
What's more tilting, demons or yordles?
Yordles.
Rogue or TSM?
TSM?
This is not going well.
I don't know. I think you've actually failed 3 questions.
You've actually just butchered everything.
I didn't know there was a...
What's your favorite number?
7.
What's your second favorite number?
10.
What's your third favorite number?
Okay, no, okay, hold
Who
on.
has this
Wait, we
prepared?
need to deliberate.
Okay, we're deliberating.
I don't know. You said TSM. Okay, get out of the seat. You can go.
Okay, I'm done. Nice.
You have passed. It was by a very slim margin.
He loses his mic pack.
He's broken the mic pack. He hasn't passed.
All right, he's failed completely. Just throw that out there.
Sorry, in the midst of attempting to do my job, I accidentally threw my mic pack on the floor somehow, so there you go. Right, let's get back to the job that I was actually hired here to do, not answer questions and have a look at the schedule, because we have actually got some games coming up tonight. Now, we start off and kick off the day with Schalke versus SK, going all the way down to Origen versus G2. Guys, any games that you've got your eyes on in particular?
I mean, I'm looking at this Rogue versus Excel game purely for the fact that this is sort of Excel's last chance here. You know, they're sitting with only 1 win in the standings in week 6. If they don't start picking up wins now, they're just going to lose their chance for playoffs entirely.
And I think what's really easy to point out is the G2 versus Origen. It feels like we have a really nice ramp hype day, where as the day goes on, the games get even more intense, even more hype, and we get a potential finals rematch here.
Well, now that we've got the schedule, every week it is customary that we have a prediction. So let's have a look at the predictions for this week. I actually chimed in with my own predictions. I got asked. I was very honored. But let's have a look exactly what's happened here. Ender and Froskurin, very similar, except we've got a bit of differences. Froskurin, XL, you chose that over Rogue, and also there's a Vitality Splice mismatch as well. Okay, I'm going to give you 20 seconds. I'm going to focus on the Rogue and XL matchup here. Ender, you've got 20 seconds. Why are Rogue going to win this?
Yeah, you can go first.
I mean, first of all, XL have one win so far this split. They have not shown consistent good play, and the parts of their games that have been good have been their early game, led by Cajal in the early, but I think Inspired is one of our better junglers here in the LEC, and that's not actually going to be a strength for XL in this match. It's going to be Rogue all the way.
Let me tell you, Rogue is the easy answer here. I do think that they are the more consistent, stronger team. That said, I think XL can update, and it's about hedging a bet to where the upset's going to be. Now, how they do it is you need to make sure that Olaf is banned away from Inspired. He's never going to see that champion again, sorry. And the early game for XL is still incredibly strong, and that's a lot where Rogue are building their leads, is in that early game. So I think that this will be the difference maker between Jessica and Mystique versus Woolite and Vander. And I think if you ban Olaf, you ban Azir, and you take away the Rakan, that XL actually have a good chance to upset.
I'm on Frosk's side here, even though I predicted.
Wait, you predicted Rogue?
Shh, we don't need to look at that. The stakes are high, though, win or lose for teams this week. And Froskurin, you've had your eyes on a few teams.
Yes, so as we ramp up into our race for playoffs, I want to hone in on some of the make or break moments upcoming for teams. First, it's Excel Esports. Now, currently sitting last in the standings, they're quickly watching any chance at playoffs slip away from him. And that's why this week is actually so critical. Facing both Rogue and Misfits, this is one of the best, if not the only chance for Excel to secure a 2-0 week. Fumbling here won't mathematically eliminate them from rejoining the playoff race, but it would most certainly be the nail in the coffin for their summer split. Now, on the rise is Schalke No Fear. And fun thing about them, probably the only word that I can say in German. Now, on the rise, after their first 2-0 week, Schalke have established themselves solid in fourth, currently set to cruise control into playoffs. Now, this week, they're going to face SK Gaming and Splice, giving them the opportunity to open that buffer and cement their spot while also doubling down on their head-to-head over Splice, which will certainly help them out in the playoffs. And finally, while Origen's line has been that they'll be ready in time for playoffs, we get our playoffs early. This week, it's the rematch of the spring semi and finals match, as they'll face G2 and Fnatic. Now, while expectations are that Origen will fall, now is the last time we're going to get to see these Titans clash outside a possible best of 5. And I hope Origen will give us a game and some hope, because tomorrow they have a chance to make a huge statement as they'll face off against the Fnatic in our match of the week.
After Rift Rivals, it's been quite rough, but 9-14 is next week. We had a good run last split, and we are looking to ramp up again and get a good run this split, so hopefully it starts next week.
Next week's games against Origen actually mean a lot to us. We want to make top 2 so that we can have a really good position to play from when we get to Athens. Mithy, he finds solutions really quickly. From that point of view, he's really scary to play against. I feel like he helps shape a lot on how I feel the team should play macro-wise when I was in G2. I always want to make sure that the team plays really good, solid macro so that he's kind of proud of me. A lot of our early games in the spring ended up us being 5-6k down, and we realized we had to really shore up our early game issues. And now we are here where we've had like 5-6 very strong early games and just smashed our opponents because of it, so I'm really happy with that.
Fnatic probably have strong early game, right? But they're also like flippy a bit in a way, like they do weird stuff sometimes, so it's mostly working, but I'm not sure like the early is like that scary.
Period gets taken out. Nukeduck is so incredibly strong. Nukeduck is so incredibly strong. I'll say it one more time. Nukeduck is so strong.
Mithy always really likes to play really calculated and look at the minion waves and where his jungler is on the map.
Mithy, I've seen that TP before back on TSM. He might pick it up. Svenskaren will go down, and Mithy, will he walk away? He actually does.
Whereas Hilly is more like, I'm just gonna go in and win the trade no matter what.
Ab's trying to dodge, but the skewer.
He picks those champs even in like bad matchups, so I think if we like manage to draft a good duo lane in the bottom, we will see if he can make any plays with his champs.
I don't think Fnatic is a team that can only play aggressive early game and can only win when we have the early game aggression. This is one of the reasons why everybody looks at Rekkles in our team being such a huge factor.
Oh, Rekkles dodged the petrifying gaze from Perk!
He just tried to like make 100% plays, whereas Fnatic I feel like look for like 60% plays.
Are you good enough to make the 10% happen is the question.
Chill is able to break the tower. They're now trying to trade back. Oh! He's out!
We think we are.
If you look at Fnatic versus Origen, I see that both mid laners really like to innovate. Our mid laner Nemesis, he has been showing the Twisted Fate a lot. But I also see that other players in Origen are not too shy to innovate.
Oh, Nukeduck though going for it.
That's scary.
Okay. Messiah version 2 is what we're going to call that one. Nukeduck still alive.
I think Fnatic are just gonna go super crazy like they usually do, and the game is gonna become a bloodbath. Yeah, I'm excited for that. Should be a fun game.
I think in the moments that OG does try to play their standard macro game, are we going to be ready there? Are we going to be waiting to just slaughter them?
Fnatic versus Origen semi-finals from the Spring Split rematch. It is an old school EU LCS head-to-head. If you go back 4 years, this was the ticket match. And it's also a massive chance for these two teams to prove themselves for one reason or the other.
It feels like a tale as old as time, but in this current chapter, in this current iteration, I just kind of want to harper back to that that interview, because I really like what Bippo was saying, this idea of like brain versus brawn when it comes to Hilly versus Miffy. This dude who really thinks about how he's going to take each matchup. If he needs to sack a lane, like Miffy will play on the defensive and the back foot, versus someone like Hilly who's like, no, I can make this matchup work for me. I can force this play, and I'm good enough that I can execute on it.
Yeah, Hilly's one of those players that will just seize the moment. It's so much fun to watch when he is on those champions, like the Pyke they mentioned in the video, or the Rakan that we expect to see a whole lot of on this patch. So the bottom lane is just going to be an exciting lane to watch.
I want to dive in a little bit, because Origen come in as the underdogs, even beating Fnatic in Spring. What is it that Origen can do to get the edge over Fnatic here?
I think it's all about pre-plan. So going into Fnatic, it feels like they're a team that if everything goes to plan, they like force the plan, and they're very explosive. You're looking at Bwipo, you're looking at Hilly, they're constantly going to be blitzing at you and taking plays, and Origen have kind of two stages to take from it. They can say, okay, let them make the plays. When they make it and then they fail, and then we capitalize, so you kind of wait them out. Or you can try to match fire and fire and just bring the CC tools necessary that if you know Fnatic are going to fight you, have things like the Cataclysm or the Sejuani ultimate available and say, let's go.
Yeah, I sort of prefer the wait and play against the style that Fnatic is bringing to you, because what we've actually seen from Origen so far this split, I feel, is when they've started to struggle, it's because it seems like they're experimenting a little bit more in the early game with how cold is pathing and looking for some more early game plays. Sometimes he shows up to lanes trying to make something happen. He's not quite able to find that window where it does work, and it comes from him trying to be a little bit more proactive, I feel.
I do want to say that I have a bit of some reservations for Origen coming onto 9-14. It feels like a lot of the champions that they really relied on, the Tom Kench, the Lux, Sona was another big one, and all of these champions have kind of seen their way out of the meta. I'm curious if they're going to stay stuck in their ways and continue to reach for them, or if they're going to mix it up, whereas it feels like everything that Fnatic loved just got that much stronger.
And exactly what you said, Ender briefly touched on it earlier. Rakan on 9-14, Hylissang the support, and we have Medic standing by. He's going to teach you how to be a good support in lane.
Thank you very much, Xcandal. Great to see you here in the LEC. Let's talk about supporting. As an avid support main, I often wonder what things a support should consider when they get into the lane, and specifically when you're thinking about trading in the lane. Now, bot lane pairings, in my opinion, can be split into two separate parts. You have your Enforcer and your Defender. An Enforcer is the champion that wants to play on the front line, wants to constantly harass, dodge in, dodge out, and get the damage down. A Defender is the champion that plays a little bit further back and is looking to allow an avenue of an escape for their Enforcer. Good Enforcer supports are people like Rakan, who can jump in with his W and then jump back out with his E. The Defender tends to be the AD carry, but when you're playing a bad matchup like a melee into ranged, sometimes the support can be the Defender as well. Moving on, we're going to have a look at exactly the things you need to focus on when you are looking to trade in lane. There are four main things you have to think about when you take trades. Those are: how many minions do we have in the lane? What is the effective range of my champion? What are my stat checks, levels, items, and buffs? And then the cooldown dance. Do you have cooldowns? Do your opponents have cooldowns? Keeping track of them can be vital. Let's have a look at the basics of this through the eyes of Mickey. Now here, he and Perks are playing Xayah Rakan, one of the strongest lanes in the game, into Jinx, and Tahm Kench. Immediately, what you'll see is the role that each player adopts. Mickey is your enforcer. He's the guy on the front line jumping in, whereas Perkz is the defender. What Mickey will do is he'll use the extended range on his E alongside Perkz' W to be able to get in and harass as much as possible. Because of the W buff on the Rakan, he's going to win that stat check battle, and it means they win the early trade. This effective range advantage, the ability to jump back and forth, gives G2 the early lead. Now, what about minions? Most people know if you have more minions, you've basically got another player in your lane. You have someone doing more damage for you. But something else you can do with minions is try and make them crash closer to your tower. If you bring those minions past the halfway mark in the lane, it makes it very difficult for your opponents to step up because they could always be ganked by the enemy jungler. Look at this danger zone that Schalke have to play around. Mickey's able to push up into this second bush and force Schalke back over and over again. And because of that, Schalke aren't even able to approach the wave. They hit level 2 later than their opponents, and it makes it very difficult for them to CS. This constant threat of Mickey on the Rakan means that Upset and Ignar can never step up. Now, Perkz is still playing the defender. He's the one positioning to back up Mickey when he jumps in like that, to get a little bit of extra damage down and to give Mickey an avenue to jump back out. Because of this advantage, because of the enforcer and the defender, G2 stack up a humongous wave, push it into Schalke's tower, and force Schalke to lose CS underneath the turret. Now, this process continues to repeat itself. Every time Mickey has his W cooldown, the ability to jump in, he uses it. He harasses Upset, he harasses Ignar, and then Schalke are unable to reply with any damage of their own. By the time Mickey and Perkz get off their first back in lane, they are 13 CS up and have pushed the lane all the way into Schalke's tower over and over again, forcing Upset to have to stay around on low HP and try and clear the wave. Now, there are a few caveats to when you want to trade in the bottom lane. You can sometimes deliberately take bad trades because you know you have an advantage somewhere else. First off, playing for pressure. If your jungler is invading, sometimes you take a bad trade to try and keep your opposing laners in the lane with you so they can't get on towards your jungler who's counter-jungling. Secondly, if you have a sustained advantage in the lane, say I'm Nami and I have a heal, I can take a bad trade because I know I'm just going to heal up afterwards. And finally, if you have global pressure, like teleports, like Destiny, you can always force trades as your enemy has to be scared that you've got reinforcements arriving. So to recap, Mickey and Perkz built up this early lead by pulling the minions into a difficult position, by using their effective range advantage, because the Rakan could be so far up in the lane, by playing around their superior stat checks in the form of Xayah and Rakan's W, and using their cooldowns when they could to get in and harass the Schalke bottom lane. If you take these ideas into your solo queue games, you'll be supporting with the best in no time. Love you too.
Cheers, Medic. Actually, fun fact for you. The first time that I ever climbed to Diamond, I started in Gold. Me and Medic did it in duo queue. He played only Thresh, and I played only Jinx.
So you're the one that boosted him?
Yes.
Gotcha. It makes so much more sense now. I knew it couldn't be VODS.
This is a long time ago. I'm talking like Season 4, Season 5.
Why you gotta kick a man when he's down?
Speaking of good supports, though, we have Ignar from Schalke coming off their 2-0 week. And that's the first 2-0 week they've had in Summer Split as well. Schalke look like they're on a tear right now, and they are our hot team to watch this week.
Yeah, and a big reason why is because of Trick in the jungle for this squad. You know, this team coming from a disappointing spring to summer split said this was the change they needed. They needed someone to rally the forces to make the calls in their games, and it's so evident from watching just both Trick's pathing as well as the way Schalke play as a team. They are much more coordinated, on the same page, and just smarter about the game.
It feels like with Trick in the addition, it gives them some pre-planned thought, whereas I think with Memento, they were a bit too reactionary and kind of playing from the hip. I also love how Trick is plugged in with Abadage and Ignar, and it's specifically how he makes those two shines. Abadage looks like a completely different player, and obviously when you have kind of that veteran status sitting next to you in Trick, it's easy to shine.
Funny enough, actually, Schalke tweeted about 4 days ago, put up a little meme, and it said, it feels good, you know, when you're 6-4, ready for playoffs, and then you remind yourself of Spring Split where you were 7-3 and you didn't make playoffs. So obviously, you know, it is worth mentioning that Schalke have been here before in Spring Split. Do you think Trick is going to be enough to secure that playoff spot for them?
I mean, I personally think so, because you go back in spring, it's very easy to judge this team in hindsight that they didn't have all the pieces together, they didn't have the solid foundation. This split, I think, is a very different story. They have the foundation built up, and that should be enough to carry them to playoffs.
Well, for more on Schalke, let's hear from their man in the jungle over with Law.
Thank you very much, guys. Law here, and joining me today is Trick before his first game of the week. Thank you very much for joining me.
Hello, yeah.
You received a lot of praise since you joined the team. I mean, Odo even makes some jokes about it.
Yeah.
What did you bring to the team since you joined them?
I think I make like mid jungle synergy very well, like in my team, and like some macro part, and yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
And when you joined Schalke, can you give me some details about what was the team missing back then?
I think like before when I'm joined, like they don't have like mid jungle synergy very well, and like they don't like they're not that good at macro. But like when I'm joined, like we improve a lot, I guess. And yeah, that's make pretty good, I think.
You really improved. I agree on that. The team was in a good spot during spring splits. You almost made playoff, but you didn't. So how do you know that you will make playoffs this time?
I think like we are like not that like best level, but like I think we can be best level, and if we practice like hard and try hard, I think we can make easy like in like this split.
How about today's game?
I think we can easy win, I think.
Easy win?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see about that in a few minutes. Thank you very much, Trick, and back to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Law. Good to hear from Trick.
Easy win.
Good to hear
Freelo.
from Trick. Because he's led us very nicely into our first game of the day, which will be SK versus Schalke. And actually, away from Trick, I want to look at a very specific matchup. I want to look at Crownshot versus Upset, the AD carry matchup on the bottom side of the map.
Yeah, because this is such a hype duel between these two players. The last time these two teams faced off, it was Upset on his Vayne, it was Crownshot on the Ezreal. They both got super fed, but in those key pivotal late game team fights, it was Crownshot that came out on top on that signature champion for him. He was really able to shine, just pop off in these fights.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the establishment versus kind of the up and coming. Now, Crownie did have some confidence issues early on coming into the LEC, but I feel like he's really ironed them out, and you're getting to see him shine. Now, that said, it still feels like Crownshot still doesn't have the same effective champion pool size as a guy like Upset does. The fact that Upset can reach in, he can grab things like the Vayne, they can go toe-to-toe and be some of the best Ezreals in the LEC, or Upset can go back to his Xayah and look like a monster. I just don't think the number of tools are there for Crownshot just yet.
So, SK, we need to put it in perspective. They're on a 5-game losing streak right now. This is obviously now in a very important week. Yeah, it's dire. I think that's a good way of phrasing it. It is dire for SK coming into this week. They need to step things up because playoffs are just around the corner. And if they lose this week, they're not looking so good.
Right, and you know, we heard from Crownshot himself last week that this team is struggling to find their identity right now. And before, this team was synonymous with Selfmade. It was his show. I think something that's been a struggle for them is they're not drafting the lanes that they can play through to get early kills, to unlock Selfmade in the jungle, and it's really hindering them.
My question to you is, what lanes are they going to play through? Where do we want to see SK play through to win here?
I would love to see Selfmade team up with someone like Dreams, who is consistently drafting a lot of that hard engage. He's one of our big Nautilus players in the LEC. Nautilus is in a pretty good spot right now, or maybe he himself goes for something like the Rakan. I think that they've been trying to play alongside Pyrion, taking a big pick like a Yasuo, but unfortunately, individual performance, like Pyrion's not having the same consistency in summer as he did in spring. And until that tightens up, I don't know if that's an option. And sacking your mid lane that early on, where he's losing a lot of matchups where he's being bullied around, means that Selfmade is never getting the opportunity to play the enemy jungler or even make it down to Dreams on the hard engage.
Right, and we've actually seen, like, even in some of their games last weekend, Selfmade and Pyrion were trying to work together. You know, there was a Scuttle Crab play, I remember, in particular, where Pyrion roams up to try and help Selfmade, but then there's mechanical issues that come into question, where he flashes the complete wrong direction, and then things fall apart. So it does play on two different levels right there. They have to work cohesively together, and then they just have to be able to execute on it.
Well, we are gearing up for our first game of the day. Each team has got 8 games left to secure the necessary wins on the race for playoffs. Let's toss to our casters.
Thank you very much, Scoundrel. I'm Mary, this is Very, and it's Mary Puppy time.
Hello, little puppy. Hello, it's Mary Puppy time. Yes, hello. Hello. Hey. Oh no,
We
don't
did
take
not
the
see her.
puppy.
No, don't take her. Don't take her from us. She's out there. Oh, Apple.
Oh, bye puppy. Bye puppy.
He is the Grinch of the show. That's what I
Well,
realized.
I guess, guys, it'll just be Medi-Vedi time for now.
Medi-Vedi time, League of Legends, let's go!
No puppy, but still, it's still us. We're here for Schalke versus SK Gaming of our first matchup of the day.
I'm covered in dog hair now as well. It's a good thing I'm wearing a white shirt.
So no one can notice. So
no one will ever know.
We've talked a lot about Upper this morning, or this afternoon rather, so let's already talk about some League of Legends, because we're going up again, we have two mixed teams right now, given that Schalke is sitting up towards the top of the standings right now in 4th place with a scoreline of 6-4, whereas SK Gaming are near the bottom of the standings. And they've kind of had very different splits. Schalke has slowly been improving throughout the split. The introduction of Trick, we heard it early on in the pre-game, very much about how he's introduced a lot more macro to the team. He's improved the synergy between him and Abadage. Whereas for SK, it seems like that they're a shadow of their former self. They're not quite the same explosive team